My name is Mark Leonard, and my wife and I own a 2020 Tesla Model X long range. My son and his fiancee are getting married at a riverside lodge in western Montana in June 2022, and we decided to drive there from our home in Reno with our two greyhounds, taking about a week to drive there and back. Here's our plan. Drive from Reno, stay overnight in Pocatello, and drive the next day to St. Regis, Montana. After the wedding, we'll head back to West Yellowstone, but because Yellowstone has been closed due to flooding, we'll drive south to Jackson, Wyoming, see the Tetons, and stay overnight in Jackson. Then tour the Craters of the Moon in Idaho and head back to Reno after staying in Twin Falls. A lot of people, myself included, have questions about the suitability of a Tesla on a long road trip like this, especially into more remote areas of the West. Common questions I hear all the time include, are there enough chargers? Are the chargers crowded? How much time will charging actually take? Is there enough room to pack everything you need for a week, including a couple of big dogs? And since the Model X doesn't come with a spare tire, what happens if you get a flat? At the suggestion of some friends, I decided to record our trip in some detail and report back on what we found. So one of the things I'm a little bit worried about is we're going to be kind of out in the boonies a little bit, and we don't have a spare tire, and so I decided to get an emergency flat tire repair kit. Went down to auto parts store yesterday and got this handy little kit by Slime. So it's got a compressor and some stuff apparently that you put in, and it'll enable you to pump your tire up to get to a more permanent fix if you get a flat. So this is pretty cool. It's got a gauge here, and you can store the hose in the top and the cord to the 12-volt charger in the bottom, and just plug it in and turn it on. When we first got the Model X, we were worried that we weren't going to have enough space for packing, and we're just shocked at how much space there actually is. Here we've got, we still have plenty of room in the front, and I'm going to go back here to the back seat. We haven't even filled up the space under the seats that we could use. And then here around the back, we have plenty of room. Again, look at how much more space that we have back here. It's just, it was quite a surprise to us how much stuff you can pack in. Oh. So here's the doggy limousine, and they're getting ready. They're getting quite anxious, but notice that we have that screen. I think we bought that, Julie, did we buy that from Orvis?
Orvis, yeah.
Yeah, it works really well. Okay, the dogs are loaded, ready to go. Sorry about the butt shot. Here's sweet Stella. And we're about to set off. They've got comfy accommodations for the long trip. So this is our first leg from home here in Reno to Pocatello. It's currently showing 8 hours and 22 minutes. I don't think that includes the charging time, and it's 570 miles. So here's the trip planner with the stops added in, and you can see we have 3 stops. Each average, the first one in Winnemucca is 20 minutes, 35 minutes in Elko, and then 20 minutes in Burley, Idaho, before we get to the Best Western in Pocatello. That one is right across the street from a supercharger, so we'll charge up overnight too. Okay, it's Saturday morning, and we're about to get the car packed up, and I had plugged the car in last night to top it off to 100%. Got to 322, so this is about 18 miles below where when we bought the car almost exactly 2 years ago in June of 2020. So we've lost about, what's that, about 5% of battery capacity in that time. And we're off. It's 60 degrees here in Reno, It's 850. We've got, it's dropped from 322 down to 318, just packing up the car. And we're about ready to turn the nav on. We're going to the Best Western in Pocatello Inn. So that's loading up. And first stop is Winnemucca. We're at the altitude, by the way, here is 4775, and that's probably, we'll be going up and down. We'll record the altitude as we go. Well, we're out in the middle of the high desert here in Nevada on our detour. Saw some wild horses back there a little bit. So here we are in Winnemucca, right next to the casino, gas station, and we got here about 10 till noon after that half-hour delay, and a Starbucks stop. So this is showing that it's a 250 kilowatt facility, but boy, it sure is going slow. We're getting 66 right now, and there's only 2 of us here. So I think we're going to move over to another stall to see if we can get a little more juice out of the other. So we moved over from the left side of the facility here over to the right, and now we're getting 500 miles an hour at 138 kilowatts. Good move. So we've just arrived at 220 at the Elko supercharger. It's warmed up to 73 degrees and it's not blowing quite as hard. Dogs are taking a walk. So we have a bit of a choice here. Here we are in Elko, which has a 150 kilowatt charger. Wells has a 250 watt supercharger, and here it's now telling us that if we charge here for 40 minutes, we can make it to Burley, Idaho, where there are currently 4 ports available. So the question is, should we go ahead and accept that, stay here for another 40 minutes, probably close to 50 minutes, or go up to Wells, stay here for 10 minutes, and then charge up in Wells, and then either go to Burley or beyond. So we'll make that decision here quickly. Now going between Elko and Wells. And Wells will turn north up to Idaho. Pretty remote country out here. Here we come up to the very crowded Wells supercharger, right next to the Sinclair. So here we are in Wells, Nevada. Nobody else here. We're going to plug in. Dogs are happy to stretch their legs a little bit. And this is hilarious. So we're plugged in here, and look what's right behind us. A dinosaur representing gasoline, of course. And here we're at Wells. We've got 92 miles left, and we are cranking at 182 kilowatts, 656 miles per hour right now. Okay, we just filled up in Wells, went up to 261 miles, and we're headed north now on 93 to the Idaho border, and we're going to go across some real expansive, desolate, high desert. So I'm quite surprised how agricultural this area of southern Idaho is. We are east of Twin Falls, heading towards Pocatello, and it's just nothing but farmland with sophisticated irrigation. It's really very rolling hills. It's about 4,000 foot elevation, You can see the foothills in the distance, but beautiful area, beautiful country. Well, here we are in early Idaho. We've got one other Tesla here charging up. It is now 7:24. I think it's mountain time, and let me see, we are running at 600 miles an hour, 165 kilowatt, and we've already added 24 miles in just a couple of minutes. So looking good here. Next stop, Pocatello. We're on our way to Pocatello now. Looks like we might be running into a little bit of weather up ahead. Okay, we got to Pocatello with about 100 miles left, about 9 o'clock at night. So we left at 9 o'clock in the morning, but we crossed a time zone, so it was really a total of 11 hours, including that half-hour detour, so roughly 10 and a half hours. Supercharger is in the back parking lot of the Grand Idaho Inn and Suites. Again, it's not very well marked, but found it just fine. And it's got a good charger. We're getting 122 kilowatts, so it's charging right now at 440 miles per hour, which is great. I'm going to be here 35 minutes, and then tomorrow head up to St. Regis, Montana. Okay, it's Sunday morning, Father's Day, and we're headed off around 9:04 from Pocatello. First stop is Lima, on our way to St. Regis. Well, now, this is the first. We are in Lima, Montana. Lima, I don't know how they say it here. And we've got all these chargers. It's never seen it on just hard pack before, not paved. Because it looks like it isn't all that well maintained, but as long as it's producing juice, I'm happy. Well, we've got lots of juice here. We've got we're charging at 510 miles per hour. We came down to let me see, we're up to 89. That's 15 miles. This is already added just the time I went out and took that first video. So it's we plugged in at 10:55. Okay, we're back on the road again, heading north from Lima, headed for Butte. Really pretty country. Well, here we are in Butte, Montana. We have 4 out of 6 stations taken. We're getting 260, not a high-speed supercharger at this point, and be here for 30 minutes or so. And here we are in Missoula at about 3:10, and this time there are 4 bays taken out of 6 possible chargers, so it's more full. And it's also running at 265 miles per hour, 74 kilowatts, so it's a little bit slower than usual. Here are greyhounds out for their usual walk. It's actually kind of nice to get a break every couple of hours. We're now on our final leg to St. Regis, Montana. It's a beautiful country. We are right next to the Clark Fork River, and some very, very interesting mountains or foothills. And here we are in St. Regis, where our Airbnb is. Let's see how we like it. And we arrived at our final destination at about 4:45. My son's wedding was great. Beautiful location on the Clark Fork River, a few miles west of Superior, at a place called Sheep Mountain Lodge. Some fishing, maybe some drinking, outdoor wedding, and lots of love. So here we are in Superior, Montana. There are 4 charging stations, and we are the only ones here at this point. We got here about 11:45. We're headed to West Yellowstone today. It's about a roughly 325, 330 mile trip. Okay, we've charged up pretty well, and we're going to stop in Missoula. It's only 53 miles away, and that'll take us into Butte. So this is an interesting situation. We're back in Missoula and drove up here, and that white one on the left just pulled in ahead of us, and this guy was already here with the trailer taking up 2 slots, for which he came over and talked to us very nicely. He said he's just got 15 minutes left, and but it's an interesting situation as to what you do if you're dragging a trailer, especially when you have to back in. So anyway, that's the situation here in Missoula. Okay, here we are back in Butte, and here we'll fill up because our next we're going to try and make it to all the way to West Yellowstone from here. So we just turned on to Route Highway 359 from the I-90, and we are headed down towards West Yellowstone. So we just pulled into West Yellowstone, and this was cutting a little bit tight for us. We landed here with 38 miles left on the battery, and we left Butte a little bit longer after charging a little bit longer than they recommended, and we ended up being a little bit nervous about getting in here. Just note to self, note that doesn't hurt to add a few extra miles to the Tesla Trip Planner app recommendation. Okay, we're all packed up and ready to leave West Yellowstone. We've decided not to attempt to get into the park from the west entrance, but we're going to go down to Jackson and then go up that way. So we made it into Jackson, Wyoming, topped it off to 310. Our plan is to go up into up maybe as far as Yellowstone, but go up certainly up in the Tetons for the rest of the afternoon. It's about 1 o'clock. Today is Friday the 24th. We're back here at the supercharger at Whole Foods in Jackson, Wyoming. Yesterday we took off and went north through the Tetons. It was beautiful. We went up to the south entrance of Yellowstone, and they wouldn't let us in because our license plate ends at 0. Today we're headed for Idaho Falls and then Craters of the Moon, and stay overnight in Twin Falls. Okay, we charged up to 280 miles on this and finally got our trip where we wanted it. It kept wanting us to go down Highway Interstate 15, but we want to go around that to Craters of the Moon in Idaho, and it actually, the trip planner wanted us to go back to Idaho Falls after we went to Craters of the Moon, right about here, and so I had to put in another stop here in Cary, and then take us down to Twin Falls tonight. So it was 90 miles from Jackson to here in Idaho Falls, and I'm taking the opportunity to really top the batteries off, because currently it's showing that we would end up in with the route that we're taking up to the Craters of the Moon Park, that we get into Twin Falls with only 22% left. So we're here at Craters of the Moon. We got here about 4:30, and we'll drive the loop and then head back to Twin Falls. We landed in Twin Falls at about 7:05. We've already added 163 miles, so it's a good fast charger. The altitude here is about 2,300 feet. So we're at Shoshone Falls. Very interesting. And it's about 11 o'clock, and we're going to take off to Nevada. First stop is going to be at Wells. We're back in Wells, Nevada, coming down from Idaho this morning, and there was one car who was here when we got here. Now we are the only one. Pulled into Elko, and we tried 3A and 3B were open, so we went to 3A, and it wouldn't charge, nor would 3B. Spaces are so close together that it was impossible to get for one side or the other to get in and out of the cars. So here we are in Winnemucca. We are now at a 250 watt charger. It's probably losing 30 or 32% or so. We made it back to Reno from Winnemucca at about 6:30. No detour this time. The 168 miles took us about 2.5 hours, and we had 71 miles left on the battery. So that was a very fun trip. And what did we learn from our week on the road? We drove a little over 2,500 miles, of which 350 miles were sightseeing and local trips. Reno to St. Regis, Montana, then to Yellowstone, Jackson Hole, Craters of the Moon, and back home. Our destination driving of about 2,150 miles took about 37.5 hours of driving and a little over 10 hours of charging time. What we learned is there are plenty of Tesla superchargers as long as you can keep your legs under 200 miles for we have long-range Model X. Out of the 17 charging stops we made, we found only 2 chargers that were not working. The superchargers were not crowded in general in the middle of summer. We only had to wait 15 minutes at one supercharger, and that was because a Tesla owner dragging a trailer took up 3 out of 6 slots. And even then, it was a 15-minute wait. Let me say something about the full self-driving software. It's now a $12,000 package that we didn't sign up for when we bought the car, but we decided, because you can get it month to month, we decided to sign up for it for this road trip for $200. For us, that was well worth it, as it makes freeway driving even less stressful. The main advantage is just turning on your blinker when you want to pass or get back into your right lane to change lanes. It sounds minor, but it makes the driving experience very nice. Overall, the Tesla is really relaxing to drive. There's no engine noise, the amazing visibility, excellent navigation, plus the stress-reducing self-driving features that the car normally has anyhow. Not to mention a fairly brief break every couple of hours. The onboard Tesla trip planning app is okay, but needs improvement. Among the suggested improvements would be showing more accuracy with anticipated battery loss based on weather conditions, inside and outside temperatures, altitude changes, car weight, and the driver behavior that the app learns, such as speeding, use of dog mode, sentry mode, and so on. 2, based on our numbers, I would recommend multiplying the displayed battery range by about 70% to get a more usable range estimate. The third thing is I wish Tesla would display more data on the app, especially mileage between stops. And the app should take into account published detours. Our detour just east of Reno on our way out was well publicized, although we hadn't bothered to look it up in advance. And 5th, I think it would be helpful to display charge pricing, even though we're grandfathered in on the free Supercharging for Life program. So speaking of pricing, we don't know what the cost would have been because we had zero fuel cost for our 2,500 mile trip. But my understanding is that supercharging rates are all over the place these days, depending on state-by-state regulations and whether users are charged either by the minute or by the kilowatts used. I hear the rates have also increased dramatically since the end of 2021. If the average rates are between 50 cents and $1 a minute, we spend a little over 10 hours of charging, that would be somewhere between $300 and $600. That's roughly comparable to an SUV getting 25 miles per gallon for 2,500 miles at $5 per gallon, which would be about 500 bucks. I may be way off on those charging cost numbers. I don't know. Another thing, in the future, we'll review the upcoming supercharger data in advance. The two chargers that weren't functioning in Elko were displayed on the app. We just didn't look at it in advance. We would have avoided that stop if we had looked at it before we left Wells on the way back. Also, it's a good idea to look up power station stats in advance. The difference between 150 kilowatt and 250 kilowatt chargers can be significant in terms of time savings. So go with the 250 kilowatt whenever you can in order to shorten your charge time. Also, take a look at the amenities, especially how close you are to restrooms. That's important. And then finally, signage. It would be helpful if Tesla spent more money on signage to supercharger stations, although, I don't know, maybe that would reduce the fun factor of trying to find these new superchargers. I hope this has been helpful. Please be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below and I'll respond. Thank you.